Thank you very much, Ramon, for your kind word and the introduction of the meeting. In fact, I have to greet one pioneer of this kind of meeting. 15 years ago, about 15 years ago, the president of the Brewers of Europe at that time, the Count Rodolphe Deleuze de Corsoaren, planted a seed. And a few years after, some symposium occurred, and the seed became a blossom, beautiful blossom. And today, that's the seventh symposium. The blossom is a beautiful flower. And I want to thank the Brewers of Europe for the continuing tireless effort to continue this kind of, of symposium. What I just want to introduce you is to an epidemiological data, very clear. No, it was not the case 40, I say 40, not 14, 40 years ago by a Californian cardiologist, Arthur Klatsky, a wonderful man, exceptional man, very humble, and a real gentleman, still alive. And he discovered that, can I have the first, maybe I can, yes, I'm always happy when it works, otherwise you cannot imagine the anxiety for starting the first slide. So he discovered that moderate drinking reduced the mortality, but we have to you all know that no, it's very clear. Yeah. So that's a mean. You have the abscissa, this line, and when you go below this line, you decrease your risk of mortality. If you are above this line, you increase the risk of mortality. And it's very clear, you know, the red line is for men. You will see that's different for men and women. Not so much, the curve are rather the same, but you will see some differences, very important differences for the future. So for the man, the black line, you clearly see that you decrease the mortality by having between 2 and 3 drinks a day, so every day. And till 4 to 5, you don't have any modification in mortality, and then your percentage of mortality increase slowly and very regularly. You can see that the variance, you know, the interval of confidence is very narrow. So it means for men, it's very clear. For women, it's a little bit different. First, you just have a clear decrease of mortality for 1 drink, 2 drinks, and after that, it grows up very quickly. But furthermore, much more important, you see that the interval of confidence is very broad. So it means for women, it's a little bit more complicated than for women. Some men would say as usual, but for alcohol, it's the case. Women are rather different from men. Furthermore, if you look at, that's a mean of all the diseases. If you have a look on the specific diseases, you see that the G-curve is very different. It varies a lot. Very good for coronary heart disease. But for injury and for alcohol-related cancer, you see that the G-curve is very different. So practically, what it means. And how to interpret the G-curve. First, you can say that if you drink 2 or 3 drinks per day for a man, you will be in a good health, and your health would be better because you have a decrease in the mortality. That's a statistical strategy. I don't think it's the best one. The best interpretation is, tell me how much alcohol you drink, and I will tell you your health status. It means that alcohol is inside a life strategy. including life satisfaction, contextual, social context, friends, the families, the diet, very important. We will hear some lecture later. So alcohol is inside your life strategy. And so, in fact, alcohol is a very good index to evaluate and to estimate the life status of an individual. So if you ask to a people, how much do you drink? I drink 1, 2, 3 beer during the evening. I like that, watching TV or with friends, and I eat vegetables and so on. So you can say you are in a very good health status. So alcohol is a very good index. If the people say, yes, I like to drink 2 bottles of wine a day, half in the it's during the lunch and another half after the lunch, and then some cognac, and in the evening I like to drink with my wife 1 full bottle of wine or 4 heavy drink. So you can say your life status may be better if you reduce a little bit your alcohol intake. What about drinks in the interpretation of the G curve? The ideal level of alcohol would be low as possible. And what we observe at the present time, there is a general increase in the alcohol level. In wine, I'm surprised to have wine Côte du Rhône of 15%. It's very common. And beer also, you have beer of 10%. It's like wine in the past. So there is a general trend to increase the level of alcohol. It's maybe not the good road for the future. Why the ideal level of alcohol would be low? There is a recent publication in an American journal. It's very interesting what they do. In fact, they give the same amount of alcohol, 0.5 gram per kilogram body weight, so 0.5 gram of alcohol, but in different concentration. With beer, 5% concentration of alcohol, with wine, 12%, and with spirit, 20%. So the only difference is the volume, of course, and the concentration of alcohol. But the amount of alcohol is exactly the same. 0.5 gram, 0.5 gram per kilogram of body weight. And they just estimate the blood alcohol level. So in the abscissa, you have the time, 1 hour, after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, etc. And you clearly see that the peak of alcohol is very different and depends clearly on the concentration of alcohol, not only on the amount of alcohol. For beer, it's very good. You see not a very high peak. For wine, it's very similar to beer, but for spirit, it's very different. Why? Because absorption of alcohol is greater than elimination. You have just a limited stock of enzyme able to metabolize alcohol. It's the dehydrogenase in the liver, but in limited stock. If you have high concentration, the liver cannot eliminate metabolized alcohol, even if you have a first-pass metabolism through the intestinal mucosa. Why it's important not to have a high peak? Because if you have a high peak, you cannot metabolize the alcohol, and alcohol can reach other organs, the brain, the lung, and other organs, and can damage those organs. So it's very critical not to have a high concentration of alcohol. That's why beer is a very good alcohol content, if we can say that. Don't forget that in beer, you have, and we learned that yesterday in the Palm brewery, the major content of beer is water. So the dilution is very high, and thus the concentration of alcohol is low. That's very good. It's an excellent publication and very good for beer. What's the origin of the G curve? As I told you, it's essentially coming from epidemiological data. So Arthur Klaksky discovered that, But until today, we don't know exactly the biological mechanism and of the origin of the G curve. We now have a grant in ERAB, the European Foundation for Alcohol, estimating then, and we supposed to have an answer to this question. So the major actor for the G curve is alcohol. Low level of alcohol, regularly taken, so every day, low amount of alcohol. In fact, you have to perfuse the body regularly with very low percentage of alcohol during your adult life. But another actor, very important, is the polyphenols. We will have a wonderful lecture on this very later in the day, but I just want to say something about that, because it's the future. The future is first to develop low alcohol beer and tasty beer. And one very important actor in the tasty beer is polyphenol, indeed. And what is the origin of polyphenols in beer? It comes from malt and hops. You know that it produces a lot of phenols, acidic phenols and so on, and you have a lot of, about 50, specific to beer. So you just have those phenols into beer. So for the future, what we have to do, not myself, but the scientists must do that, to identify those polyphenols, to study their implication. What is the biological implication of those polyphenols? Of course, not all those polyphenols are active for the taste or for a healthy body, but we have to study that. Then, to study the effect on health, and after that, when we focus on specific polyphenol, to increase their potency by modify them genetically, so we can increase their action. So together with a low content of alcohol, to increase the action of polyphenol, I think it's a very good future for alcohol. So thank you very much, and I will leave the place to the actors now.